Good morning,
Sure.
afternoon, evening, wherever,
Did you
however
forget where you were at?
are joining us.
He's not sure.
No, I'm all fired up from our American Hustle conversation because it was a good topic, and I had more to say, and we just flat out ran out of time. So,
Yeah.
Welcome. That's J4x4.
yeah, man, that's the truth. Time is our number one commodity we cannot buy back.
No.
My name is Neil with SFJ4x4.com, joined in the Grandma's Couch studio with these fine gentlemen.
Mad scientist Scott Brown. Took it
Doc.
from Jeff.
And
And the producer,
Jeff
the
Shermani.
Italian Stallion.
Jeff Shermani.
On his unicorn.
What?
What?
What are you?
I was referencing that picture that Davey did.
Oh, I love that. I love that,
That's where
Scott.
my brain goes.
That is clearly where his brain went. This is how we're going to start, folks. This
Good
is
morning,
how-
Amy. You were the first one in today.
Amy's got first today. Amy's got first. And don't forget, folks, if you are listening, all three of you in your ear holes at home at a later date, you too can join us in the future on most Mondays at 10:19 a.m. on the Book of Faces live. And you just head over to SFJ4x4 / Simpson Family Jeeps Facebook page, and there'll be a little live link there. And you just click on it, and you jump on with us.
Oh, speaking of jumping on, here's Jill Brilla jumping on already with the comments. Sharpen your knives. I found a goat to sacrifice. Her name is Princess Fluffy Hooves.
So just for folks who are weighing in on that one, Joe's Jeep is possessed, and I have,
Despite him coming and trying to perform an exorcism on
which
it.
you can find on YouTube. Yeah.
Yes.
It did not sufficiently. It did not
No.
satisfy. And I've spent a lot of time wrestling over the weekend professionally, and so I'm gonna just try not to get too much off on a wild tangent. Professionally over the weekend, dealing with the concept that there's a number of vehicles that we are caretakers of
Yeah.
that, and I just understand that if you want to know more about this concept, I'm here to answer it directly to you. But I had to explain to a customer last week that if it was any other person who owned it,
Mm-hmm.
it would have been traded back into the dealership. It would have been sold at a depreciated value.
Shot at with a 50 cal.
It would have been right. I
Put
mean,
on
the thing is, it
tracks.
never would have been as further invested as it has become. That basically the concept that we often talk about is a Friday Jeep.
Yeah.
It's a step above a lemon. You might be listening to us and you might be familiar with lemon laws and what lemons are. The issue is a lemon, the legal system has sat around and batted this out to say basically it has a uncharacteristically high maintenance or defective rate to its
really
appropriate
needy.
market value, right? It's really needy in comparison with the whole of the manufactured line, right? So if it's within a year or 2 or 3 years old and this vehicle has a high level of need at a depreciated value, you have a lemon. The issue is there are also just some vehicles, despite how you do or don't use them, that are not representative of the line as a whole. So if your Jeep has death wobbled on you and like everything has been good up to this point and yet it keeps regressing into death wobble fits, there's probably something underlying wrong with it.
Yeah.
Right? Or let's be honest with Joe's, there's an electrical issue with his that's just never particularly right.
Yeah.
I was talking with a great friend of mine who's obviously been helping with a house build. He was up this weekend. His Jeep, for anybody else in the country,
Yeah.
it was a lemon.
Oh, yeah.
From day go.
From day one. He said honestly he didn't have, I think he said 300 or 30 miles or whatever. It was like within a day or two
yeah, it was
of
crazy.
owning it. He ran through a drive-through. He went to put his window down, and the window would not go down. This was back in 2013. He buys a brand new vehicle. The window doesn't go down. from there on, it has just been.
It was showing its colors right then.
I mean, he's had 2 tip-ums. We've had to rewire wires from the ignition to the starter. We've had to undo and redo just about every sensor you could possibly ever imagine. And it's important to note that a lot of that work was done under dealership warranty previously. Not even in our care until roughly 2016, 2017, and it's a 13. So he went 3 or 4 years. Whereas if it would have been anybody else owning it, they would have just been like, take this POS back.
Yep.
I'm done with it.
Give me something else.
Give me something else.
At this point, he's accepted the poltergeist that's in the Jeep,
Yes.
and
He's made room for it. He just lets the
Yeah.
poltergeist ride shotgun, you know?
And so, I remember early on in my tenure here, it did something, acted a fool on me, like after work or something, because he was such in the business. I'm like messaging him, hey, it's doing this. What do you have any insight? It's like, he's like, oh yeah, it does that. Just give it 5 minutes. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
Or whap it here on the dash with your palm of your hand, talk sweet nothings to it, and it'll be okay.
Yeah.
It's like,
No doubt. No doubt. So it's
Scott's
just,
over there going, that's not okay.
that's
No.
not how this is supposed to work. It should not do this. And yet, for whatever reason, we are subjected to a number of vehicles, and it is like my cross to bear right now because we have like 3 or 4 vehicles that have these. They are, and the problem is
The
explaining to,
gremlins, that's what
they
it
have the
is.
gremlins, and it's explained to the customer, you are the exception, not the rule.
yeah.
And we're just loaded up on them right now, and they're bogging me down in the process to be like, this isn't normal.
Yeah.
And we're going to be touching on that subject a little bit today, folks, when we talk about tire failures
Yep.
and tire tech a little bit. And
Absolutely.
so the mad scientist has prepped some data for us, but we'll be talking. Jeffrey's got a new a set of shoes on his vehicle.
Yep.
I'll be in the market here soon, and we have lots of tire conversations. So we'll be bringing that up today as we go forward.
And real quick in the comments, Daddy Jeep saying good morning and Darla saying good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So we had, I know that you guys had a big weekend. There was wheeling. There was Jeffrey doing after-hours work on the vehicles. There was the weather was mild. It wasn't as good as they had claimed it was going to be.
It was
Well,
okay.
still,
though.
still Sunday made a nice day.
Yeah.
I mean, a little chilly, but
Yeah,
still
oh,
nice.
absolutely. I went out to the park and played with my kids. Absolutely. I get
Yeah.
it. So what was on your guys' radars?
Do you want to go first, Jeff? Since I stole the
Yeah.
introduction from you.
That's fine. So Saturday, I obviously stayed after hours and worked on my Jeep and my wife's car. Did new shoes on both.
Nice.
And it's serendipitous that tire failure happens to be our topic because that was why I was changing my wife's tires.
Okay.
She actually ran a screw over, ended up being like a mile-long screw, and it went out the sidewall.
Well, yeah, that was wild.
Yeah.
Not seen that one before on a personal vehicle.
Went
I've seen
through the footprint of the tread, right?
almost
And then-
centered.
Almost center, and then it was seriously like a 4.5, 5, 6 inch whatever screw, and it popped out the other side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Wow,
incredible.
amazing.
So we had that happen. We replaced all of her tires. I put 37s on my Jeep, so it grew up a
Yay,
little bit.
The big crowd.
So that was fun. I also the nacho lights we recently talked about. I put a set of those on my Jeep,
Nice.
and Greg happened to stop in to grab some tools and said, "Hey, you could probably put them over here with a little bit of fabric cobbling." And I went, "That's a good idea."
Yeah,
So
you
I
did Greg things.
fabric cobbled a bracket, and they've
the
got
next
a
thing I know,
they've
I'm
got a
getting
very nice
message and
location.
Like, hey, Greg recommended we do this connector. Can we do that over here too? Yeah, bring my tools.
Isn't that the
over.
best? I mean, he has just such a unique way of looking at the world. It always costs me more money,
Yeah.
but he has a fantastic way of looking at the world.
And honestly, it just when he said it, I'm like,
Oh.
well, that makes so much more sense than where I was going to put them.
It's frustrating. That's just the reality. He's been my friend for 10 years at this point, and I just that wild to think he came into our life 10 years ago, and it's just he just constantly does it. He just looks at the world differently than the rest of us,
I
and
know.
whatever,
Yeah.
you know. So it's like it does. That's a good idea.
So there was that. I did do the Clayton rear track bar so that I can fit the 37 underneath. And there's a lot of people talk about having to remove the heat shield to do that. I didn't like that idea, so I literally laid underneath of it and had my wife crank the tire up while I positioned it exactly
Oh,
perfect so
jeez.
that it fed up
the
in.
heat shield,
The heat shield and it is tight.
meh.
but it's fully inflated and it's in there.
Cool. Good for you.
So it will fit for those that say it won't. It does.
Well, it depends on the tire too.
It yeah.
Was it a 13.5? I don't know. I checked out. What did you
This
say?
is a 37 12.5.
12.5. Okay.
So what do they actually measure height wise?
36 and a quarter.
Not bad.
Pretty
Yeah,
accurate.
important to note, folks, that tires, and we might talk about this, are like dimensional lumber. They are never
Yes.
what they are advertised on the sidewall, except for if you were maybe to inflate them to the pressure that it indicates on the sidewall.
Yeah.
Then at that point in time, there is an idea that an unloaded, right, meaning we
Yeah.
don't have any load-bearing vehicle.
It's just
that
a balloon sitting there.
it's just a balloon. Then at that point in time, it might actually be a true 37. That's all I
Yeah.
can figure.
Yeah.
In the comments here real quick, we have a 2013 JK. It's possessed. We always say, what's next?
What's next?
That was
Get it.
Sandy. And then Scott Bennett said, morning.
Good morning.
My wife called me out. I was the one that ran over the screw with her car, apparently.
Chris said, no, I did
Well,
not
bump.
get the screw in the tire. If you're going to talk about tire failure,
Huh.
do you know also what's not surprising? That Jeffrey did it.
Yes.
Nobody on this side of the studio is
Not
surprised.
So, anyways, Bill's also saying fabricable is the only way.
Yes.
So-
yes. We like to claim professional fabricobbling
Yes.
on our end. So.
Oh, yeah. So besides that, I did the trip to Erie, had the nonprofit meeting, and finalized some important details for the event coming up in April 19th.
Mhm.
So that is all moving swell. Some chance encounters along the way within the last week.
You have a great serendipitous experiences recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got an angel riding on your shoulder. Just watching out for everything you guys got going on. So maybe appropriate with the special event that you have coming up, which is
It's Jason Heberly's Memorial Open Mic Competition. And
April
it's
19th.
April 19th, 6 p.m. till midnight at Voodoo Brewing Company in Erie, PA.
And is specifically a charitable act helping raise awareness with independent artists and helping with the lending library.
Yes.
And, cash prizes and should be a good time had by those participants. And they're kind of winding down the participants list at this point, or is that still
So
people good to
there's-
keep submitting?
There's a week left of that, so the Sunday
Okay,
Sunday
that's
is
what I
the end date.
Okay,
So they've
that's what
got
I
till
thought.
Sunday.
Excellent. Yeah, we wish you luck with that as usual. So, anything else good there?
No, that's
We'll
pretty
talk
much
about
it.
those tires here in a second.
Yeah.
Scott, you had a big weekend. You had
Yep.
there was metal work on Friday for the business and
Yep.
personal notes. You got updates on the 36. You managed to carve out time to go wheeling.
Yep.
Wow, Scott, those are great updates. I'm so glad you got to tell us about them.
Well, look at me. All right, moving on, because obviously what I have to say is more important.
Michael and Roy say good morning as well.
My bad. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry? I don't know. I don't really feel that bad, but I get called out on it, so now I'm like, I'll just go pout in the corner over here.
You know how you have such a full weekend that you forget to update people?
Okay. But the thing is, here's the
Don't worry,
challenge
Neil's
is-
got you covered.
I'm
You don't
gonna
have
say,
to.
I've got you both covered. I tell you, folks, if you post it on the internet, I'm not lying. I'm living vicariously through all of you. I'm creeping on you, just so you know. I know what you did. If you posted a good meal,
He knows what you did last summer.
I do. And people downplay it, and I do know.
Maybe he needs to work on his house some more and stuff off the Facebook.
No,
My,
I mean,
my
it's not-
favorite is when you tell him something that was posted and he never saw it, and he's
Yeah.
like, "No, there's no way that was posted. I would have saw it. It's right
Yeah.
here.
That's true.
How did I miss
How
that?"
did I-
Yeah.
He's actually upset about it.
I saw your rolling video. I saw your off-roading. I saw, I saw it all. No, yeah.
Oh, Daddy Jeep wants to know what's in the shop. Then, if you're so good,
No, he's fishing to get some comments.
Yeah.
He has a pretty unique vehicle.
You make sure you let that thing out of there so nothing affects other things.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking forward to the Tund lib build happening there. That looks
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Kind of go against the grain a little bit there.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Actually, I have one of the folks who used to work here for a brief moment, just as a part-time employee. He had a Tund Liberty, old Gen 1 body. I'd love to see that thing actually come to life. He actually reached out to me this weekend, and we had a nice time talking.
That's good.
All right, what were you up to? So I'll be quiet.
Well, obviously, I've been working on a pet secret project for the shop, and if you want to see into what we're doing, you need to,
Join the Patreon.
join the Patreon so you can see that.
You get a sneak peek on the YouTubes, but the full build is on the Patreon.
So then on to...
Hold on a second. I know, Rob. I know you were talking about. I'm not even going to honor folks who are listening in who are like, but I don't get the inside
name
jokes.
Shall not be named.
It's a little truck. There you go. It's a little truck that's not a Jeep. There you go, Rob. I gave you that.
Anyway, on to other things. I went ahead and on the 36 started working on the rods that go from the firewall to the radiator to clean them up, because of course now I've cleaned up everything else on the car. So now I looked at those, and I had even painted these early on, and I looked at it and went, no. So I sandblasted them and then painted them, and then that paint didn't work out. So then I wiped all that off and started over. I was muttering about aerosol can paint quality. That touched me over the weekend, but finally got a paint that was satisfactory for those that nobody will ever look at but me.
Yep.
On the drama of the coil, I did finally hear back from the coil manufacturer, and I did have the wrong coil, so then I had to order the other coil that is epoxy filled. And
you had an oil filled coil.
Yes.
You had a flamethrower that was oil filled?
Yes.
Really?
Right from the horse's mouth. Finally, they do get back to you. It just takes them a while.
Yeah, but they have a really good little business. We've had to call
do.
them a couple times because they make that exhaust that I like.
Yes. The thing that really was interesting, though.
That wasn't cryptic or anything.
Not at all.
So now I'm over $100 deep in coils, but it's okay. Put the epoxy filled coil in there that looks exactly
it's
like
building
the other
cars.
coils.
Everything's $100 at this point. That's cheap at this point.
And I get it all hooked up. And I literally was doing this last night, and the old coil I took off literally had some oily residue on it. I was like, I see you, coil.
Because you had it mounted
on its side.
On its side. You had it mounted horizontally.
Yeah. So missed that bullet, and got the hood actually bolted on the car, and I finished off the day.
Think about how many people are not as conscientious. They don't know. They don't think about it. It's the idea of the vacuum pump motors actually on the JKs, right?
Oh, yeah.
When we first started relocating them.
They just started moving them everywhere, orientation.
Everybody just moved them, and they just thought, oh, this isn't that big of a deal. I'll just
turn it upside down.
Turn it upside down.
Yeah.
And that's simply not how that device was ever engineered to work.
Yes. 100%.
And then you complain about it. Then you're like, as a DIYer, as a consumer, you're like, oh, this piece of junk. I just bought this flamethrower coil, and it blew on me.
The only thing I have
weeks.
to say is just tell us in your little paperwork with the coil if it's epoxy or oil filled, and on the oil filled ones, tell us not to mount them sideways. That's all I want. Additional. Otherwise, great product.
Sure.
Fair. Because I would have not done that if I would have known.
Fair.
Know now. You don't know what you don't know until you know it.
There it
Here
is.
we are.
There it is.
So, and then, like I was saying, last thing, I got the hood actually bolted down now that the rods are holding the grill at the appropriate distance, and realized it had 1,500 dents in it. So I finished off the day dollying those out, and promptly was so tired when I went in, I forgot to update Instagram. So now you guys are hearing it first, and you'll get that later.
Okay.
Nice.
And if somebody is new to us, new to this program, and they want to follow this project along,
it's 1936 Ford Crazy on Instagram, and my friends on Facebook also get to see it. So
totes.
So then on to what I did before the dolly work is we went ahead and took Celeste, my 21 Gladiator Rubicon, out to Southington. Went with a good customer of ours and friend, Chip, and his wife.
So you want that lift in 37s now?
Actually, it was impressive what a stock Ruby will do.
Always. This is Scott's thing.
I parked.
You
parked
gave him
next
such
to him.
a leading question. And
I
he's
parked next to him in the driveway, and he's like, "I'm already thinking about it."
No, because
then I wheeled it.
And then he uses it, and this is the thing. This is why Scott, folks, if you're listening at home, Scott was more than tickled with 32-inch tires, 9.5-inch wide, on a 6-cylinder. He
Yeah.
couldn't have a 4-popper. He wanted a 6-cylinder because he wanted a little bit of torque band under there, a little bit of oomph. But that was all he ever needed in life because he is worse than a grandma or grandpa driver. He's just his
That's so true.
his adrenaline rush is just simply going down the road.
So, Kristen just said, I think SFJ needs a Doc Brown T-shirt with that saying on it.
We probably do.
Well, I think we absolutely do.
Yep. That could be yours for the low price of
A T-shirt cost.
of a T-shirt cost, $25.
So that once I figured out all the buttons and all the whiz bangs on the Gladiator, it actually worked out pretty darn good.
Did you just say whiz bangs?
Whiz bangs.
Wow.
Working on my next T-shirt, obviously. So this is the first time personally owning
Whiz bangs.
a 4-to-1.
I'm using it. My son, my 10-year-old goes, Dad, do you still use Smidgy Bit at work? I was like, heck yeah, I use Smidgy Bit all the time.
Absolutely.
Smidgy Bit. Oh, just crank that bolt down with Smidgy Bit. You know?
That's perfect.
Whiz bangs.
Anyway,
We need a glossary, like SFJ terms. Smidgy Bit, whiz bangs.
My favorite
what else
is
could
ish.
be ish?
how do you just now
Everything's
know we need
ish.
that?
But I'm saying on a shirt. On a shirt. We need a SFJ 4x4 glossary of terms.
You just have mad scientists.
No,
on
God,
there.
no.
Anyway,
We want people to be able to read the
We
words.
want people to be able to read it, not just alphabet soup is thrown up on it.
but so this is my first time actually experiencing a 4-to-1 transfer case, and
Life changing?
it's interesting because it takes a time to go down hills in low range. I will tell you that.
Yeah.
I had to try hill descent control, which is crazy, as your Jeep just
Why
goes,
did
it
you
does its
you
own
just
thing.
tried it at Southington? There's not a hill
Well,
at Southington that requires hill descent
I
control.
know, especially in low
I-
range.
I know, but I
You can walk
I did
beside
try
the
it when I
Jeep.
got mine too, just to see what it did. It was actually really fun.
Oh, I used it all the time on the JK, but it was kind of crazy that with the 4-to-1 adding in with 410s on 35s, it's like, okay, I'm just going to get out and walk.
This is
beside the
why
Jeep.
old curmudgeon Jeep owners, like those of us who love that old vintage iron that's just, you just died like a man. There was no
Yeah.
whiz bangs on it.
No.
You just had to do the work. Now
And-
the vehicle does the work for you.
And other than that first time of trying it out and seeing what it did, I've never used it again.
oh yeah.
But it was just, it's neat to see it.
I'm gonna get
I
on
just
my I'm
like-
gonna get on my high horse for a second. When I was wheeling like the 48 and
Yeah.
old blue and all
When
that
you're
kind of
almost
stuff.
getting thrown out of it like a bucket.
Well, I was
taco.
I'm
getting
just
thrown
gonna-
out of it like a bucking bronco.
I just want to quickly throw in the fact that you're talking about that and not having any of that. I still don't have lockers and I'm wheeling just fine. So
That's because your platform is that when the JK came out, it revolutionized everything with the independent braking control
Yes.
and the hill descent and just a phenomenal manner in which
But
it articulates off
If
road.
you want to wheel like a mad scientist, so lockers and 4-to-1 really are nice.
And that's what I'm
'Cause-
saying. I
'Cause we were just
remember
very predictable.
it's important to
time.
note that like every time I'd go out in one of these vintage old pieces of junk, I would break something,
Yes.
right? And then I would get into the Jeep with like Scott, or I'd get into the Jeep with Jason or somebody else, and there would be like classical music playing, and it
Yes.
would just be like
Sipping your
blah, blah,
latte.
blah, boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, no, this isn't fun. There's not some sadomasochism happening here. I don't want part of it.
Yeah.
All right, my bad. I'm done with my soapbox.
So
Go ahead. Tell me about your experience.
I'm going to go to this comment real quick. Matt Whitted's in the comments saying, speaking of Southington, when you worked on my rusty TJ, I said, I just want to do the stock trails and a few less than stock ones at Southington without breaking. I did the stock trails at Southington Saturday, and it did not break. Job well done.
Yep.
Ah, yay. I'm
Yay.
glad that Matt got. You know what? Matt is a fantastic example. Those of you who are listening in, who are watching in, he is a touch point. He encountered us on the YouTubes, watched the video, learned the metrics, reached out to the business, paid for a remote crawl over experience.
And he's got his own podcast, Perpetually Unnamed.
Yep. Who's on first?
Yes.
Not doing it.
Perpetually
Not
unnamed.
buying
is-
what you're selling over there.
I'm just saying, he worked through the perfect touch
Yes.
point of the business, and obviously he's here to testament that he bought himself a crusty, rusty TJ that what has character to it, and he's obviously out there being able to enjoy it. So
Yeah.
very cool. Maybe he'll do maybe he'll do a podcast for Perpetually Unnamed on his Jeep, and or collab with us in the future in some capacity. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Perpetually Untitled. I said it wrong.
Oh, Jeffrey.
I was close.
Jeffrey. All right. Anything else about your incredibly boring experience at
it was
Southington that I have no appreciation for?
It was so perfect. It was like normal.
Whatever.
I don't go out enough. I do need to do that more. My kids were scared at the beginning, and then after a while, I was like, it was really cute. My daughter.
What were they scared of? That they were going to
So
fall asleep and miss something?
in the back seat of the truck? My son's like, well, Evie, this is a Rubicon, and it's built for this. And she's like, it is? And he's like, yeah, it's got other things that, Dad had to add to the green Jeep to be able to do this. This one's built right from the factory to do this.
I
And
can't
she's
believe
like,
Aiden had an appreciation for
oh,
that.
I feel so much better now. Evie goes.
Nice.
Yep. So when we were doing the hill descent control, I literally told him, I was like, Dad's not doing anything but turning the steering wheel. The Jeep's doing it all right now.
Lame.
And they're like, wow. And then I had to apologize for Chip. I was like, I'm sorry, I took like 3 years to go down that hill. I was playing with the hill descent control. He's like, I figured you were. It's okay.
If you're not grabbing gears, ramrodding into first gear on an old crusty,
Yeah.
iron,
Pushing the clutch through the floor.
pushing the clutch to the floor
Suddenly
in my
you don't
bare
have
feet.
clutch anymore because it fell apart on the trail.
Whatever.
Xander was actually
Watch it.
mad because he heard that you were going to be going wheeling and I wasn't going with you. He was so mad. He's like, I want to go off road. When are we going off road again? I'm like, oh, we'll do something in the future.
Yeah.
I love that Davey went with one trip on New Year's Eve and was like, that was actually the most fun I've had wheeling. He's been employed for 2 years and he's never actually
Yeah.
had fun on the
You
trail.
need to stop riding with Scott and Jeff.
I'm calling him out because he has definitely had fun riding with me to the point that he doesn't actually like to ride in mine anymore.
Well, that's because you drive in rainstorms with the top off. But anyway.
That was his idea.
Seems legit to me. Seems legit to me.
Uh,
No doubt. I had the impulse this weekend to be like, you know what? I think I'm gonna get the 48 out of the garage.
Oh, boy.
I'm just gonna spit shine it and see if I can drive it this summer.
What did we break last time? It's been so long, I don't remember.
I
don't
don't
think we
remember.
ever repaired
Somebody
it.
asked me. Somebody asked me if the steering was still broke, and I was like, nah, the steering's fixed. I don't think it is.
I don't think it is.
I think that it's still like baling wired on there, and I drove
Yes.
it into the garage like that.
Yes.
And
There was a reason it was retired, but it's been so long ago, I don't completely
but see, I
remember.
think it's been so long that it's now fixed itself.
Oh,
and
Oh,
old
like
Jeeps
Christine.
do that.
It's not actually wrong anymore. It's not broken.
And yeah, the windshield broke, but you don't need that on an early flat fender.
No, and it smokes like a sieve. But I thought, you know
That's
what?
how we
maybe-
can find you on
Yeah.
the trail. You
Yeah.
hear for noise and smoke.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? I feel like I need to bring it out. I think I might still do that this summer. So
Yeah. The good thing about an old Jeep is you can hit it with a hammer like 3 times, and it will burst to life and run for a period of time, so you remember why you parked it, and then
Yeah.
you fall back out of love and back into the new Jeep. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. We should talk about tires.
Yes.
We should
We
should
should.
actually talk about tires.
Did you have any updates before we do that?
You know what? I had a wonderful weekend. The house build continues to move. Nothing that's going to light the world on fire.
Updates
Actually,
on that are also going on Patreon too, right?
updates on that are going on Patreon. I don't believe there's an update on it this week, just because of as far as my headspace and what we were doing on it this weekend. I didn't really get something good. Maybe I'll still produce something this weekend or this during the week.
The
for
pressure
folks.
is real, isn't it? To try to have an update for people. It's like,
I
gotta-
sure.
I got to go do something. That's why I was like, I need to go out and at least work on it. And I was like, oh, look at these rods. They're terrible. I need to blast and paint those down. Nobody's
Meanwhile-
going to appreciate it.
Meanwhile, I'm the worst because I'll just do a bunch of stuff and go, oh, I probably should have done video or pictures or something, and then there's just nothing ever.
Yeah.
Terrible.
No, for me, it was just about kind of recouping on a pretty wild week of
Yeah.
professional and personal and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I actually spent a ton of time out at the house, and I really enjoyed myself. But
Perfect.
got to be on Patreon. Figure that out for us,
Yes.
or figure that out for yourself. Anyways, Tire Tech Talk. We are going to be talking about tire failures, right? And I'm gonna get on a little bit. I'm pretty fired up, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what I believe to be true, and then we're going to come back off of it, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to give you this is
I'm going to let him talk, and I'm going to tell him why he feels like that.
okay, and this is my personal experience, and when you are into our facility, I will pontificate about this is what I believe in how our tire industry works. That basically right now, off-road tires, right? You're listening to this, and I'm going to give it the 35s and up category. You have about 5 to 7 years out of that tire. That is the lifespan of our big off-road tires.
I feel like that's even too long currently.
So
We'll get there.
I feel like it's more like 3 to 5 years.
and that was Jeffrey, I would you're right. Let me contextualize. It was 5 to 7 years, and then COVID hit. And now off-road tires, you have 3 to 5 years as far as longevity is concerned. That is contrary to any of us who are grown, sane adults who started buying, acquiring, and being enthusiastic about vehicles anywhere in the last 50 years.
Especially when you pull them out of a building, hit them with a hammer, and make them run again.
Correct. And you think that that's satisfactory.
Yeah.
That ultimately tires made even just 10 plus years ago were better constructed with better compounds than they are today. Now, I did personally reach out and try to call a couple tire manufacturers who did not call me back last week. Now, in preparation of having this conversation, I wanted to hear from the horse's mouth. I was unable to reach anybody. I will continue to pursue them because I want to know these things and bring them to you, our followers, listeners, and viewers in this process. But ultimately, for reasons of imbalance, compound breakdown, wearability, those types of things, those tires have a shelf life that is ticking the moment they come out of the mold, right?
Yeah, and it may even be as simple as the outside looks fine, but the compound is broke down enough that the belts are shifting inside of it, and you can't see that.
And you cannot see that. And I had to admit to a customer last week, I said, you know what? Here's the thing. I know that your tires are bad. I know that from my professional experience. But because we do not have a road force balancer or a Snap-on laser balancer, and those two machines, one made by Hunter and one made by Snap-on, conglomerate, are high dollar machines that were intended to understand low and high spots on the rubber compound itself, spots of higher and lower density in the rubber. And so we don't have those machines. I have professional experience to go off of how they balance, how our machine behaves, how the tire looks, what the tire's lifespan has been. If you've ever done only on-road, wear and tear of your tire, you will be longer on that lifespan. So if it is the 3 to 5 years, you're closer to the 5 years. If you're, back in the day, it was 5 to 7, it would be the 7 years. If you are airing down and wheeling off-road, or you're staying aired up wheeling off-road, you are absolutely depreciating the lifespan of that tire, because now that tire is being used more effectively because you're aired down, in my opinion, but you are using it effectively.
But you're bending that rubber in ways it wasn't intended to be.
Originally intended to be. You're absolutely correct, right? Again, how you have them balanced, we're frozen. How you have them balanced is, can be problematic as well. We've had customers or individuals complain about balancing beads. I've personally used balancing beads myself for probably just under 2 decades. And I have very little reservation in them, but I also have a very specific outcome and, expectation of how they perform and are used. But a lot of people in the tire world say that the beads actually beat up the tires.
I'm going to shout over to Davey because his camera obviously shut down on us.
Davey! Plug and unplug and replug. Folks at home, technical difficulties.
The plugging and unplugging is happening.
Yep. We called IT. They've suggested that we shut it down and restart it. Can people at home hear us?
Yeah, they should be able to hear us.
I feel like they can hear us. We're going to have to... Folks who are listening to us on their commute right now are like, wow, this is lame. I can still hear you. It's just...
Yep, Daddy Jeep's giving us a
That's fine. You just won't get to look at us.
I'm just gonna ignore
So
that.
here's what
Keep
I
going.
feel, and then we're gonna unpack and see if that's real. Because obviously tires have been touching this nation, good, bad, and otherwise, for 100 years at this point.
Yes. No,
All right, what do you got for us?
So the fun one is if you just type in on the Google and say, okay, what can you tell me about tires aging? What comes up says tires more than 6 years old should be retired. As tires age and are exposed to heat, the rubber deteriorates. That's because the rubber absorbs oxygen, which has caused thermo-oxidative aging.
Or oxidation.
Yes. And it is such a common problem. The very next thing you get is a law firm,
a bunch of lawyers
that will work for you if your tires have touched you. So
get the heck
the
out of here.
third thing that comes up is the actual safety research and strategies, which have done a bunch of research, and why us in our late 30s, early 40s feel this in our soul is because we've been experiencing this problem our whole lives.
Okay.
And it has only gotten worse. And I'm going to make us feel old here for a second, more than I normally do.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
When we were little bitty kids, your car could still have bias ply tires on it.
Yes, it could.
And radials were new technology.
Can you take 2 seconds and explain to...
So Davey just messaged that there was no audio when we came back. It is now fixed.
Rewind. Anyway.
Hey,
I'll
we're
just
doing
say
it
it
again.
again.
Hey, we're back.
I used all those big words so well.
He did. Whiz bang.
So anyway.
So aside from all the technical difficulties this morning,
Yes.
Davey's camera went down and apparently it took out the audio. And we're all better now.
Yes. Let us know you can hear us, people. Anyway.
Got to jump back in the comments.
We when we were little, your parents' car or your grandma's car could have had bias ply tires on it.
Yes.
And then radials came out. And radials are different than bias ply. The way the tire is constructed, the belts on a radial are actually radial, so the diameter of the tire, where bias ply is the other direction, where it goes from basically sidewall to sidewall. And it's just a different design. I'm not going to go into the differences, the pluses and the minuses, but just know that there is still bias ply tires out there and that you can buy them in specific uses.
Sure.
Like the 36 tires on it are actually still bias ply.
Yes.
Any which way. So in the late 80s is when radials really started to hit the market. And looking back through some paperwork, the old curmudgeons at the tire places, which
Yes.
I'm going to elaborate a little bit because, I got 30 pages here in front of me. So
Oh, boy.
They called this from the word go, so they're feeling good somewhere in a retirement home.
Somewhere in a retirement capacity.
That radials were going to see a reduced life due to some of the problems we are seeing, due to oxidation and that kind of stuff. And they are kind of saying because the radial would have a longer life on the car, you're going to see failures for different reasons. In a nutshell, that's basically what they're trying to say. The cool part about this is this document has, like I said, 30 pages of talking about, they go down to the microscopic level of why this is happening. They have talks from certain manufacturers and examples, one of which I thought was fun. In June 2012, owner obtained nearly unused tire obtained from relative to tire dealer who mounted on a Ford Ranger. Tire was made 31st week of 91. 4 months later, tire suffered catastrophic.
Wait a
tread
second. I'm
separation.
sorry. It was manufactured in 91?
Yes.
It is 2012, and they're trying to put this tire on.
Yes.
Somebody mounted up this tire.
Yes.
Okay.
4 months later, tire suffered catastrophic tread separation, causing rollover and severe injuries to the driver. There is tons of those. And, of course, I always find joy in this for some reason because I watched it happen. They referenced the Explorer.
I was just saying you take joy in these people rolling over?
No.
Okay.
I wanted to actually bring that up. The Firestone ordeal that we were all familiar with.
Yes.
With that, were those radial tires or were they bias ply?
Radials.
Okay. I thought they were, but I figured we'd clarify that. And did we ever find out why those tires were failing at the rate they were failing?
I'm going to try another big word. Multifaceted problem.
Oh.
Wow.
There was It was kind of the wild.
I don't know which is more impressive, the fact that it was a multifaceted problem or the fact that he could say that.
The fact that he's not high and he's saying it
Yeah,
just
correct.
off of
No
paint
painting
fumes.
happened today.
No painting happened.
So partially it was because it was the Wild West with tire pressure back then.
I was going to say, so the official, the piece that I remember in my experience
Again, we lived
was
it.
that
we
what,
feel
what
it.
we lived and that Ford utilized in the litigious environment, right? So Ford came back and was able, the Ford's legal team was able to say the air pressure was inconsistent among all the ownership
Yes.
of the vehicles in the rollovers. So for me, as a champion of the people in this situation, it was very much their way to squash the rebellion, to squash the legal process. They sowed enough seeds of doubt to say that the people involved in the crashes could not produce a consistent air pressure. And therefore, since they were not following consistent air pressure, like a standardization, that was in fact what caused the catastrophic failures in rollovers. Now, there's people will say that that's just a corporate, legalese to say you couldn't tell me that 100 out of 100 tires were properly inflated. Like, that's just unrealistic to think that out of I don't even remember. There wasn't that many rollovers, but they were such a big deal
Yes.
that were contained in this lawsuit. But the fact that the legal team poked enough holes in the idea that out of 100 vehicles, nobody could produce facts to say
especially
that they were
when
32 or 38
we
or
noticed a
24.
trend, so they started going out and checking vehicles on lots because that's when Explorers were everywhere.
Right.
And they saw this problem consistently continue where vehicles were on the lot, they were improperly pressurized all over the different boards.
Improperly, knowing
And-
that they were all over the board as far
Yes,
as air pressure
correct.
is concerned.
And
And they
that's-
sowed seeds of doubt into the legal process.
And they also realized that tires were made in batches, and just because they were on a vehicle at this date does not mean that they were produced at an appropriate time before that manufacture of that vehicle, so that they were actually older than what your experience would
I'm
say.
going to get on a tangent for 1 second, so
Yeah.
you don't listen to my tangent. You stay the course, right?
Okay.
I literally lived this last week with a customer, and I was indicating why or how I knew these tires were bad. Customer states that she bought the tires new 3 years ago. Now, we're living in a post-COVID world, so we're
Yes.
dealing with supply chain logistics issues. We're dealing with product and inventory that didn't move for a year and a half.
And
we're dealing for people who are scrubbing the back of warehouses to find product.
Now,
right?
in this case, I truly believe that that's all accurate, but I also know factually from our own experience, we've really misconstrued timelines because of COVID.
Yes.
So we've been like, oh, that was only 2 years
And
ago,
that-
and we look back, we're like, oh, that was actually 5 years ago.
Correct.
So, and that's fine, and that's a fair, kind of point of
I'd
contention.
say there's truth in both.
There
Yeah,
is, right?
100%.
So understand, customer believes that their tires are within the last few years purchased. They are in fact 2018.
Yes.
And so that makes them, they were actually indicated. Now, it was like 96, 97 when they started to do the DOT approved date code. Tires had to be dated.
Yes.
And I don't exactly recall what year that was. You can Google it. It'll be out there.
yes.
But
In my feels, again, this is Scott's memory. It was a direct correlation with, okay, your tires are, the Explorers all fell over in 97.
so it might have been the early 2000s,
and
yeah.
people were like, okay, I need to check on what my tire is age-wise, and how do I do that?
It might be 2001. Jeffrey's going to Google it
Yep.
for us, but if I had to put $50 down right now, made up $50, I'm going for 2001. What do you go for?
I say 98, 99.
All right, well, no, pick one.
99.
All right, you're into 99.
I'm not going to
Yep.
guess.
You haven't found, you're not going to guess.
No, because I have it here.
Okay.
So this is explaining it. I don't
All
know
right,
if it actually has
it
the
loads. I'm going to say this customer, so the date code indicates the week of the year, so you would have 52 weeks. That'll tell you where and when and how that tire was done. There is actually, when I say where, when, and how, there's actually a series of numbers that appears on the sidewall of your tires that I can personally guarantee you does say where, when, and how. It indicates what factory, what region, what part of the country, what
Yeah,
batch it is
lots of
part of. There's a
information.
lot of information.
Since, drum roll,
Wait a second. Hers was February 18 makes them 6 years and 1 month old. Go.
2000. Since 2000, the week and the year.
God bless it. We're good. We're good, but
Yeah.
not
The week and the year the tire was produced is provided by the last 4 digits of the tire identification number. So, that being said, some tires will have just a 4-digit square
Mm-hmm.
that is indicative of the date that it was made.
Yep.
Others will have a series of letters and numbers, and the last 4 digits
Yes.
are what you're looking at.
Yep.
Yes, and it's not always on both sides of the tire either. It'll be
No,
one
the
side or
wild
the
peaks
other.
that I was looking at last week are just on one side.
Yes.
They will all have some form of indicating like a serial number somewhere on the tire, so don't
Yep.
get confused by that.
But like if it was 5107, it would have been the 51st week of 2007.
There
Yep.
you go. There you go. All right, so back to what Scott was sharing with us.
So this is a cool quote. M.A. Jacobson presented at 9th ESV in 1982. This is how long ago this goes.
We've been fighting this
Yes, our
trend
whole
happening.
lives. So
Yes.
that was really eye-opening. Addresses aging effect on tires. Notes that sidewall and tread rubber harden and crack with age, exposure to oxygen, ozone, sunlight, and high temperatures.
Yep.
To counter these effects, tires use small quantities of fairly costly additives and compounds. Tire makers don't expect tires to be in regular use after 6 to 8 years after manufacture. Now, this is
That's
1982.
That's 82. They're saying 6 to 8 years.
So some of these car tires probably did not have sufficient special additives to remain supple for hard life or long life. Now, I'm going to, again, do mad scientist things here. We're 1982. We don't have any data on tires, and we know this already.
right.
It's not a big surprise that, a little over 10 years later, we're having cars, the tires come apart.
No, we're talking 20 years.
Well, yes.
We're talking almost 20 or 15, 15,
Yeah.
18 years. Now Firestone as a manufacturer with Ford's
Caught.
somebody's got their hand in the cookie jar.
And again, this is blasphemous gossip from the mad scientists. If we have a special high-priced additive that's going to help these tires not age out, and we go through a national crisis, what are you not going to have to put in tires?
You're not adding the special additive
So why have we seen tires fail more since then?
since the
And
national
that's
crisis of
blasphemous
COVID.
gossip.
Basically,
I
the
can't-
preservatives for rubber are too expensive, and
Yes.
during COVID, when supply and demand is at
Yes.
its worst,
Yes.
you're going
And-
to see
And
reduced.
I
Straight
cannot-
gossip, folks. We're
I
saying
cannot
that. I'm gonna-
find any documentation for that, obviously, for obvious reasons, but I feel pretty strongly. I think that probably did happen.
I'm also going to go with market dictation, saying that now with the increase in all these off-road rigs that can put 35s on almost
Yes.
stock, right? When I bought my first set of 35s back in like 98, 99,
You had a flavor to choose.
I had like you're right.
Yeah.
And people thought that was the biggest tire they'd ever seen
Correct.
on a Jeep, right?
And we're still dealing with the repercussions that I just over the weekend had a person online say, "Hey, I just put these 35 and above tires on my Jeep," and the installation facility said that that tire's too big to balance, and the tire that big, I need to put beads in it. I went on and I said, politely as I could, that is false. You can spin balance pretty much anything.
Yep.
That is the easier way out. I wasn't calling it lazy, but
It's lazy. It is the lazy way out. If you are
it
going
takes
to a
more work.
professional mechanic shop and they tell you that they cannot balance your 35 plus, you should go away right now.
And then this
That's just the reality of the situation.
then it just continues to show how
You don't have to be. You can be nice. I'm not going to be nice about it.
We're beaten down mentally because then somebody says, "Oh, can you balance my 39s?" Yes, we
Yep.
can. I literally replied with, "We balance 40s a lot, all
Yep.
the time." It is not the market we were 10 years ago. Back then, yes, I agree. It was hard. A balance shop would look at a 35 plus and go, "This is going to take too much time. I'm not paid enough for the service. I'm not going to do it." I understand why they were saying that.
Yep.
But we can do better, folks.
Yep.
So,
And do.
Absolutely.
on
Agree
that
100%.
on that note, as we talk about life of tires too, what the Consumer Reports are saying is that 20 to 30,000 miles on a brand new tire, or 6 years,
Yeah.
one or the other, on a brand new stock OEM tire. aftermarket tires, it's more for a quality tire, 50 to 85,000 miles, or 6 years.
Yeah.
Either way, they're saying 6 years your rubber's aged out.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting.
And like Neil was saying, not to cut you off,
Yeah.
but because we use our tires, we just lost Webb again. Because we use our tires to more extreme uses, you're going to age them out faster.
That's absolutely right. You're going to depreciate their lifespan because we are using them at or beyond the cusp of comfort. We're using them at potential for what they were
Yes.
originally designed. I do have, and I'm going to put them out there because I'm obviously fired up about the particular topic we're talking about today. I've since ProComp was released back in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, they started as the Baja's brand, right, from the company formerly known as Four Wheel Parts, and they had mixed results. They did pretty decent lighting. They had a couple lift kits, suspension lift kits, which were absolutely industry revolutionizing. That's
Yeah.
fine. But otherwise, ProComp has largely lacked an identity as a manufacturer over the last 20, 30 years.
Yep.
Here's the thing. They made a set of tires that within the last 10 years, they made a set of tires about 10 years ago, 6 to 10 years ago, that people were regularly getting 50, 60,000 miles of good road and off-road experience.
Right.
And I think that it has everything to do with exactly what you guys are talking about. It had the additives. It was made in the facility from a
Yes.
mold that was quality. To say that a brand, people oftentimes get upset by tire manufacturers or tire brands. Oh, I had this tire brand and it was done in 5 or 10,000 miles. That might have just been a particular line,
Yes.
not the brand as a whole.
Correct.
And so my criticism of ProComp as a whole is kind of, a ceasefire when it comes to this specific tire. People came in and was like, well, can you get me this tire? Because it lasted 65,000 miles. And I'm like, good for you. Like, regular rotations, appropriate air pressure monitoring.
But that is not the bell curve of society. That is
No.
an outlier.
Correct, that you are the exception, not the rule. So as a whole, I mean, I think we've had enough technical difficulties today, and we've had a number of things going on, so we may need to wrap this up some in that capacity.
It's the tire manufacturers out to
Hey,
get
we're
us.
back.
The tire manufacturers are out to get us. They don't want this, folks. They don't want this information.
Well, they should want the information. We're helping sell tires. We're
This
telling you
social-
that you're gonna buy tires more often.
Right. We're being censored. We're being censored. Record this now. Share it with your friends.
Yeah, any which way. The biggest takeaway from it is you need to be vigilant and see what tire.
Vigilant. I got to be honest. That was a good
That's a
one.
good one.
Because that's not a real word.
That's fine.
Diligent and
Diligent.
vigilant.
That word. Anyway, you need to go out.
Which one did you actually want to use?
I'm just ignoring you now.
He wanted to use vigilant.
He wanted to use
that
both.
makes perfect sense
Yeah.
to me at this point.
Anyway,
It was
Add
both.
it to the glossary.
you need to go out and you yourself need to know what the date of the tires that are on your vehicle is. That is kind of you as a consumer's duty.
Duty,
to-
responsibility.
Because yes, they're a safety item. Yes, they can hurt you if they fail. So you need to know, are they safe or not? It's no different than, is the car seat your child is in aged out or not? That is your responsibility as a
Right.
parent.
It's your consumer responsibility.
So if you've been into our facility and you had the luck of having the Mad Scientist Talk, I will drag your butt out there and show you how to read them, where it is, that kind of stuff, and explain this to you because we're passionate about it.
Now we're going to go to the comments again. Chuck is, well, first of all, Joe had said that we were speaking English again, and the camera went out, and we were back to Slovenian again.
Oh,
But now
I can do a
we're-
little bit of that.
we're back to English again. So Chuck is saying, or asking, KO2 versus Baja Boss. Need new shoes pretty soon. Well, Chuck, if you're going to be in the mud at all, I honestly can't recommend the KO2, but if you're going to be using it on the road, the KO2 is amazing.
Now, interestingly enough, and I will talk again, just pontificate at a level of experience. The KO series from BFG was released in the 90s, maybe as even early kind of a prototype in the late 80s, and then certainly in the 90s, the KO series. And it took the industry by storm. People just went nuts over it. We had not had a tire perform
had
like
a
it
unique
did.
tread pattern. We've seen lots of people copying sort of it since because it was so unique.
Agreed. And the thing is, they were expensive and they were industry leading.
Yeah.
At this point in time, there are a tremendous number of quality consumers, and you know what, BFG, if you're listening to me and understand that I was a lifetime ownership,
Every vehicle I owned at one time had BFGs on it.
they're not the best construction anymore.
No.
You pay a premium price, and they're riding on that KO line. The KO2 comes out within the last 10 years, and it is spectacular, and it works well. But as far as the construction of the tire itself, there is, in our experience, our professional experience, it is one of the more challenging tires to balance.
Yep.
You know what? And a lot of people know my disdain for Patagonia's, the MT series. I'll be honest with you.
They balance better.
I balanced a set of Pats this past weekend. I'll balance, or not this past, but prior. I'll balance a set of Patagonias over a set of BF Goodrich KO2s any day.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing reading this documentation that makes me pause on a cheaper tire
100%.
is, does it have that special sauce in it that is going to make it
And,
last?
and I will tell you, just because of the tires I took off mine were KO2 35s, and I had 55,000 miles on them, and there's still tread life left.
Yeah.
The KOs.
The
Oh,
KOs. They on road, they're a good tire.
I'll sell a KO any day of the week.
Yeah.
It's just the actual construction. I'd prefer to get you into a Toyo at
Absolutely.
this point.
And that's what I went to.
And we have seen traditionally that they do seem to balance better, last better, hold up a little better when you're in a Nitto, a Toyo, those kind of brands.
Yeah.
Sure. And we've sold plenty of Falcons. I really like how the BF Goodrich behaves on the road, and for light off-roading, it's fantastic. Here's the thing with Mickey Thompson's. I personally had experience with Mickey Thompson's years ago where they just touched me in a terrible way. Mickey Thompson as a manufacturing line was one that I make the argument at a corporate level was riding on their laurels up until about 5-6 years ago.
Right. Their name just sold tires.
Their
for them.
name sold, right? Which is what the argument with BFG is as well.
Correct.
And so realistically, we sell both tires, but if you're going to come into us and ask us for a particular opinion on tires, I'm going to first and foremost go Toyo, then Nitto, and then followed by, maybe... yeah, that's pretty much a Falcon. Falcon would be in there.
Good tires.
And then from there, then I'll get into the Coopers and the Mickeys and the BFGs. A number of those lines at that point.
And
Goodyear,
Daddy
Goodyear
Jeep saying Cooper's is what he likes.
Yeah. So and then I was gonna say I actually love a Goodyear, but right around COVID, Goodyear took their red ball and went and is reestablishing themselves as a line. So the Goodyear Duratrack is still one of the flat out best tires, but they're a little harder to come by. They've got a unique tread pattern. Their availability is questionable. There's a number of things, and their sizes are smaller than what the rest of the industry wants right now. Coopers as a whole, manufactured largely here in the great state of Ohio, is one of the softest compounds. So if you are largely just running that tire off-road, Cooper makes a nice tire. It's a great winter tire compound.
Right.
But as a whole, Coopers are actually not a great road tire.
Yeah, you're going to wear them down a lot
You
faster.
wear them down a lot faster than another product line. And these are like things like on the back end that I nerd out on is actually, there are actually composite number ratings and load speed indexes that will actually dictate a little bit of what the tire should perform as a lifetime. Right. The reality is the general consumer, most of the people listening to this podcast have no idea what their compound rating or their load speed index is on their tire. They just see a tread pattern and a price point.
Yes.
In most cases, the load speed index is so much greater than what the average consumer is going to be driving at anyways.
Correct.
100%. It's just those are helpful indicators on the lifespan
correct.
of the tire, right?
Correct.
And so,
But that's, I think, why the average consumer doesn't.
oh,
pay
their eyes
attention to it.
gloss over
because it doesn't matter to them.
And it's important to note too, movement is also what drives price. So if the primary market of that tire is going to be a heavy truck, then a high load tire is going to be cheaper than a light load tire. So if you're going in just for price alone, you may not get the tire you actually need on your Jeep specifically.
Additionally, right, and it's 100% correct, because then also you're working with shops. If you're just going in that shop sells you on a tire because it's a price and a tread that you like,
Correct.
you don't actually. They might not even understand the
Right.
science behind the tire itself that they're putting on your vehicle,
And-
because you might actually have, in say a 315 7017 out of a BFG is actually has, I think, this option as well. You actually have a load E and a load C tire.
Yes.
Not only do you have a load E and a load C tire, you actually then have a load C secondary load speed index rating. It actually is a different compound and construction.
Yeah.
So you have 3 tires, same size, same tread, different construction.
Yep.
Right.
And you are none the wiser as a consumer.
Yes.
And what's one of the things the BFG did for a hot minute was they actually produced what I like to call box tires. And a box tire to me is just Walmart or Discount Tire or TireRack.com or whomever comes in and says, I'm willing to put in a $150,000 PO.
Yep.
How many tires with this tread design are you willing to make me? And they come back and they say, well, at tier 1 manufacturing, we'll make you 150 tires. But at tier 2 manufacturing, we're going to take out some of those compounds. We're going to reduce some of this, blah, 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 blah.
We're going to water it down a little
We're
bit.
going to water it down a little bit. We're actually going to make you 220,000 of those tires, you know? And then box companies, they don't care. Once they sell you the product, that's on you at that point.
100%.
And that is a challenge to the consumer market as a whole. And I've personally, once again, I'll throw 4-wheel parts under the bus because they don't exist. They don't exist for a reason. Fire me up, I dare you. But they did that. They saturated the market around 2014 to 2016 with these cheap BFGs.
Yeah.
And I went to bat. I called into a number of these tire companies and our tire representatives going, how can they sell this tire
At this price
cheaper
point.
than what I can buy it for as a
Yeah.
as a similar commercial entity?
Mhm.
And ultimately, the response I got back was, "Oh, that's a private label deal, basically. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a deal between BFG and 4WP to saturate the market with these tires."
Now, also, as a consumer, before I knew a lot about the load ratings,
Mhm.
when I was buying my 35s from SFJ as a customer, you guys put me into load C, which was appropriate.
Mhm.
But prior to buying those tires and working here, everybody was telling me, oh, if you're going to off-road this, you need Ds or Es because you need that extra sidewall strength.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
had nothing to do with the weight of the vehicle. It was you need the sidewall strength to protect your
And
tires.
I think that that's a common misnomer.
Yes.
And the idea is, here's the idea, folks. We're using these terms, so understand that a load C. So the easiest way, the load index rating system is C's, D's, E's, and now F's, right?
Yeah.
And
And
primarily,
it does continue on if you so wondered.
oh boy,
yeah.
and largely you are going to see cheaper import tires more often in E's and F's
Yes.
than say a good quality USA manufacturer tire. Even those Mickey Thompsons or those BFGs, you're not going to see those in F's necessarily. What that is a direct correlation with belt structure.
Yeah.
So
And plies.
ply, right? So ply. The idea that a load C is a 6-ply, a D is an 8-ply, an E is a 10-ply, and an F is a 12-ply.
Yes.
And the reality is, and I hear you talk about price point, I hear you talk about availability. My dear consumers and listeners, if you go out and you have F's on your Wrangler right now, you're wrong.
Yeah.
That's just that somebody has done you wrong in that process.
Yeah.
Because no Wrangler platform, and arguably not even a Gladiator,
No.
should have F's on it. And that is just, to my experience, a travesty against our industry is the fact that cheap manufacturers use additional plies to create tire structure to then, make up for the fact that they don't have the appropriate rubber compounds to make a nice round tire.
Yeah.
They make up for it by using extra ply. So you get a heavier, harder tire than what you should actually have on your Jeep.
And while we're doing call to action things, something else personally, I feel you shouldn't be ordering 1-800 your tires offline, because how do you know what state code they are? What load range are they? I have seen multiple times where people, they got a new Jeep, they're excited, they go on, it's Sunday night, and they can go on this website and they can order this wheel and they'll mount it for you for free and they'll ship it to your door. You don't have a clue what you're buying. You don't know what date code they are. You don't know what weight class they are. And you just get this tire. All you see is the shine. You bowl them on the Jeep, and then you have a bad experience. You need to physically go and touch your tires before they're mounted on your vehicle, and ask from that person, hey, can I see that tire? What date code is it?
And they need to be responsible for, so even if you're not touching and asking and being privy to the exact tire mount up, you then need to be able to be like, oh, hey, I just got this tire from you, and it's 6 years old.
Yes. And literally, I would, if it was me, I'd be, I just got tires on my vehicle. Before I started up to leave the parking lot, I'd be going around going, okay, these are all the date codes I thought I was getting, and be more appropriate on that part, because now you can go back in and be like, hey, this is a miss. This is wrong. After you've left that day, your traction of getting something done about it is less and less and less.
Absolutely. I think I could keep going on this, and
this
there's a number of things.
We're very passionate about it.
But for the sanctity of our schedule and our customers,
Well,
and your listening engagement.
I want Scott's final piece as to why his piece of advice on tires that he always tells everybody.
About you gotta have thrown more on the bone than that.
He knows what I'm saying about why tires are so important.
Well, it's what connects you to the road. It's literally that's what makes you steer, stop, and go. And if you're not connected to the road, you can't steer, you can't stop, and you're not safe.
And believe me, I'm cut from the cloth where as long as it had tread, I was willing to wheel it. And also, quite frankly, I was willing to subject my family to it at one point in my life. I did not have an appreciation for this conversation, for the actual caliber of these tires. But the reality of the situation is so many of our on-road problems, the blowouts, the caps falling off of them, the sidewall blowouts, they are absolutely preventable. The tires themselves are actually not the root cause of it. It is our lack of awareness as a consumer market that is the root cause of some of these side of the road issues. I did it. I can't begin to tell you how many tires I changed on the side of the road because I pushed them
past their point
of breaking.
And really, the other big takeaway from this huge stack of paper over here is it literally said in there that this will continue to happen without proper education.
And I think that one of the pieces I want our consumer market to be left with is if you are buying tires in this market, you are getting 3 to 5 years.
Yep.
Yes.
At this time.
And it sucks. And we feel the pain with you.
It's also important to just say, if you're going to do a build and you need to cheap out somewhere, tires are not where you cheap out at.
No. They you know what? And I think we learned that lesson the hard way, and I'm here to talk about it at this point. We did that really beautiful 2-door JK. Great suspension, performance tuner on there, nice bumper package, so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, the individual wanted to drive the vehicle as much on road as they did off road, and I sold them. I'll be honest with you, a set of Ironman mud terrain tires, 37, 12, 5, 17. One of the most affordable mud terrain tires on the market. That is of a traditional manufacturing process. I actually really like the tire. I tell people that a couple years ago I would have taken that tire head to head with the Patagonia series, with the Federal Corregias. It was not a bad tire. The issue is the cheaper the tire, the more crested the footprint is, which means you ride on less and less of the tread itself. If you watch Jeffrey's tire pressure test from before, you'll know that for the most part, longevity out of these tires comes from a nice, wide, even distribution of the footprint. Your fuel mileage may go down. You're going to feel a little more of the road gripping the tires themselves.
It's just cause and effect there.
Right. But the reality of the situation is that's more of an appropriate thing to our industry, our market. With that said, I sold these Ironmans into this nice build, and customers' wife did not feel safe or adequate with it. Her father ends up driving it, so the customer's father-in-law, and we're going, hey, there's nothing wrong with your rig. It's beautiful. It's perfect. It's appropriate. Your experience of how you're experiencing it, and that's hard because we always want to meet a customer where they're at. But the reality is,
you chose cheap tires.
He chose cheap tires, and he said to me in his build process, he wasn't the one to pick the Jeep up upon completion, but he honestly, he drove a Tesla on his primary vehicle, and he said, he had to buy quality Tesla tires from Tesla in the process, and he goes, you know what? The first set of Teslas I burnt off in like 15 or 20,000 miles, so he bought another set of Tesla tires, from Tesla, and he said he burnt those off in 10 to 15, right? Even less. So at that point, he was like, you know what? The heck with $2,000 for, a set of car tires. I'm just buying cheap tires that kind of fit.
Yeah.
And he said, if I'm going to burn them off every 10 to 15,000 miles, then I'm just going to buy cheap tires.
I don't think he completely understood what he was giving up in that situation.
And I now know better to be like, maybe we need to reevaluate.
Yeah. And the last thing, too, just because we touched on it a little bit, and it's very important in our demographic and market, if you have an oversized tire on your vehicle, it does not take the pressure it did from the OE factory.
Yep.
You need to do a chalk test. You need to find out what yours is, because this weekend proved, loving on Chip a little bit, he had everything and the kitchen sink in his Gladiator. So his truck weighed differently than my truck did. So therefore, his tire pressure would be different than my truck, even though they're both within a year of each other. They're both got lockers. They both have 35s, literally the same brand tire, et cetera, et cetera.
His vehicle weighs more.
His vehicle weighs more because he had a deck system in the back and it was full.
Yep. Yep.
And I was an empty bed. So right there shows that, the real answer is you need to do the work. You need to do the homework. You need to watch Jeff's video or many other ones out there. Do your chalk test.
No, just watch Jeffrey's.
Well, that one too. Anyway, in the parking lot.
If you don't like looking at me, just listen to it. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. We understand if you don't want to.
Believe me, I do get that.
One of our listeners said it best last week that face for radio.
That's right. So, and the thing is about airing down when you are off road, it doesn't matter at that point. Whatever the lowest air pressure that you're comfortable with, is acceptable. It has to do with that bell curve of how you're using the vehicle. That's when the chalk test is advantageous to you.
Yes.
For me, last parting thoughts, since I did call out a number of manufacturers and because Chuck had brought up Mickey Thompson and whatnot, I can factually tell you that the Boss series, the Baja Boss series, was a re-engineered carcass. So again, what most people don't understand is that constantly there are tire engineers who are working to better serve the industry. I do believe in the best for these groups. I had the opportunity in 2019 to sit down with a couple upper level folks at Mickey Thompson and talk through, because to that point in time, I flat out had refused to sell Mickey Thompson until 19.
We literally had bad experiences.
I had bad experiences about Mickey Thompson, and I'm not afraid to share them with you. Likewise, I wasn't afraid to share them with them, and they said, we hear you at a professional level. We were riding on our namesake, and we re-engineered the carcass.
We want to do better,
We
basically.
want to do better. And that's why their Baja Boss MT radial is, for a big tire, one of my favorite tires on the market at this point. But they had a whole series of tires before that, could leave something to be desired if you were trying to use them as a all-around everyday tire. Still leading right now, Toyo, we see you. Right now, they're the ones that we can make most of our customers happy in. Nittos, Falcons, come and go, but they still have a load rating challenge that sometimes
Yeah.
loads we need are available.
It seems like the
Sometimes they
smaller
are not.
tires for Falcons work really well. Start getting into these bigger sizes, and
Yeah.
we
And
start having
that's-
trouble
So
finding.
that's where my love affair with Falcon starts. When they become stateside after they buy Dunlop out and start making passenger car tires, I put them on every person's car that I knew. They had a ZX 750 series or somewhere. They had 250, 750, blah, blah, blah.
That's literally what I put on Kristen's car.
I love the tire. Fantastic passenger car tire. As we get up into our off-road market, they have yet to yet to produce at the level of some of these other manufacturers, but they're absolutely a contender.
They're trying. Doing a good job trying.
Just because Joe Brill is in there and he's loved his Generals, I too was a General fan, ran the gamut with them. I wish their parent company Continental cared a little bit more about their truck line at the Generals. That's just, I'll leave it at that for today. Very passionate about this, got a lot of thoughts. I've got no problem sharing my experiences, the namesake of the manufacturers. If they would like to come and talk with us beyond the program, we're here to engage them. A lot of these tire manufacturers are right here in Ohio, in Western New York, in really Ohio to Western New York is actually quite a few of these tire manufacturers we're talking about. So we welcome them on the program at any point in time to talk about their products.
Yep.
Was there anything else? I know there was a treat on the in studio. Do we want to try that today?
That's up to Scott. This was actually his idea. I just forgot about it.
We were going to do a taste test, but maybe we need to hold over till next week.
I say we do it next week.
Excellent. You'll look forward to that next week. We'll do a little blind taste test. He brought in a 6-pack of something. I'm assuming it's non-alcoholic because that would be inappropriate of us to engage.
Well, and it's also Scott,
And
so
it's
it's
Scott,
definitely
and
non-alcoholic.
that's fine. That's fine. But I'm just for the viewers at home, the listeners, you're going to tune in because, quite frankly, Jeff and I have both seen the packaging. In fact, it was hidden in your toolbox.
Yeah, and I have no idea what it is.
And I have no idea. I don't have the slightest. Nothing on the outside of the package gives any indication that it's even consumable. I thought maybe it was like an old school pack of like oil when it used to come in the little cans or something.
Yeah.
We'll see. I don't know. It might still be.
It
Scott
might-
might be like, "Oh, this is edible petroleum."
He'll
guys."
sit there and be like, "Yeah, guys, well, it's really good,"
Oh,
but he's
yeah,
not
it's
actually
really good.
drinking
Take a
it.
big swig.
His can's not even open.
Folks, you're going to want to tune in next week because that might be happening.
Yes.
I hope you found this conversation to be engaging and accurate. Go out, check your date codes, check over your tires, look for dry rot. I promise you that set of 2018 tires that I was talking about earlier in the program, dry rotted on the inside, not even where it was exposed to UV breakdown on the outside. Until then, Jeep on.
Keep on.
Jeep on.